this too long.
All right, what do you got for me?
All right, first one. Are you saying spell your name for the record?
Brenthopkins.
Okay, and what's your title here?
I am actually the president of Sumar Exploration
Okay.
and Production Limited.
And Brent, how long have you been in the oil and gas industry?
40 years.
40 years.
Yes, sir.
And what got you into it?
I'm a geologist,
Right.
and in 1981, they needed to find oil. So I got a job and went to work, moved to Houston.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you work for big players in Houston?
No, I worked for a small independent company for 20 years, and then I came to work with Sumar after that.
Okay. And where'd you go to school at? Get your geology degree?
State University of New York at Cortland.
No kidding.
Yeah, they were looking for geologists really hard in '81.
It ended up in Texas, huh?
Ended up in Houston. Yeah.
I'll be damned. Let me ask you this, kind of directly to this. Where were you when the winter storm hit?
I was here in Portland, Texas, in my house.
Senate Bill 3 focuses on weatherization of material in the natural gas industry. As an upstream producer, why do you feel you won't be impacted?
Well, the way I read the Senate bill, it looks like it's not going to go upstream all the way to the wellhead. There is, that the definitions are always a little loose, and that worries me a little bit. How far it'll be somebody's interpretation of how far upstream, because on our natural gas producing wells, we have compression. We typically have some kind of processing that gets the gas to specs for pipeline. And that, if they consider that, if that gets mapped in, then we will be impacted, and we'll have to winterize it. And you can't. We have so many wells in Texas. There's 90,000 wells plus or minus gas wells, and 60,000 of those gas wells produce less than 100 MCF a day. And there's no way you can economically winterize stripper wells. I mean, the costs are way too high to be able to do that. So if they take the step and have that interpretation and go up there, $4,000 to $5,000 per well probably, and you just can't do that on a well that makes, $2,000 a month, and you're already giving 1 month away for severance tax. I mean, you just can't do that. So it'll be way too expensive. It'll make some wells uneconomic. They'll end up plugging them, and then we leave resource on the ground when that happens. So it really can't get up there, and honestly, that's not where the problem was. To me looking at this thing from the outside, and I actually have a group that have done quite a lot of work on it. It seems to be the big hang-ups were with compressor stations on pipelines went down. Then they couldn't move gas from gas storage to the power companies. And that's where the big impact was. And that was ludicrous that happened. I mean, I just can't believe that wasn't defined critical infrastructure. But hopefully this bill will solve that. If they map it and say, okay, we got to have this stuff all the time, make sure we keep electricity on here, 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 and here, and then we'll be able to get gas to the power plants.
Do you feel like if we opened up storage at the power plants to where they could, because if I understand this right, the gas comes directly from a wellhead or a distribution point, right, straight into the power plants?
No,
There's not much storage there.
There is
right?
storage. How the market works, the gas at the wellhead, we typically sell our gas to the wellhead to two different places. We can sell it directly to the pipeline, or we can sell it to a marketing company, and they take the gas and then they sell it to whoever they sell it to. They have so much gas it's like not quite as bad as the electricity, but they have to have, say, if they're going to sell 30 million a day, they got 30 million a day over here. They got to deliver 30 million a day over here, right? So what happens if this 30 million a day over here goes away, which is on the production side because of some inclement weather? They have bought gas storage, and they have gas storage someplace that they're going to use to make that up, right? The problem was they have the gas storage over here. The pipelines go down. They can't move the gas out of gas storage. I think we could have easily burned another 150 BCF out of storage. I mean, we got 2.2 T's in storage right now. We got lots of gas in storage. We just, because of the critical infrastructure going down, we couldn't move the gas from gas storage to the power plants.
Sure.
And that was a big, huge problem.
Let me, and I'm going a little bit off her script here, but I just kind of reading her notes here. I'm sure this is kind of where this could go. Is part of this the pricing of natural gas? Natural gas isn't a commodity, so to speak. I mean, we have market pricing. Would that? I hear that term a lot.
I don't. Okay. A lot of you can choose how you want to sell your price. How we have done it typically in the past is we sell half of it on a strip, which is decided, the last couple days of the month. That'll be the strip price for the month. So we sell half of it on a strip price, and then we let the other half of our gas float on market. On times like that, when the market went way up suddenly and daily gas went to, $400 or whatever it was.
Sure.
We did everything we could to keep wells on because that'll make your year, honestly, and you need that, especially after last year where we got minus $37 for oil.
Sure.
So we did everything we could to keep our wells online. I mean, but then other things happened. Even though we got a guy out there with a steam cleaner making sure nothing freezes to keep the wells on, as soon as the tanks filled up with oil, you can't bring trucks. You got to shut the wells in. So we had to shut our wells in, even though we took every precaution possible. So that's not the answer to the problem. The answer to the problem is making sure that we can get gas out of storage and to the power plants. And power plants aren't built on top of gas storage facilities, and maybe they should be.
Yeah.
But that's not my issue either. But we had lots of gas in storage. I mean, we didn't draw storage to zero. We should have burned a lot more gas, and I'm thinking at least another 150 BCF out of storage should have been burnt in Texas.
You think that could have?
That would have got us close. That gets into another. This will be off topic, but right now we have dispatchable energy, which is basically energy that you can ramp up whenever you need it, and you ramp it down when you don't need it. And that is your coal, your nukes, your gas, right? Those things can go on. We have the problem with Texas right now is that every year Texas peak energy demand gets higher and higher and higher because our population's going up and up and up. Every year we retire dispatchable energy power plants and we replace them with non-dispatchable energy power. So even though our capacity is nearly double what we would need, if you don't have that dispatchable energy that's going to fit that peak load, you're going to have brownouts. And we are setting ourselves up because of the tax incentives to put in non-dispatchable energy. We're setting ourselves up to have brownouts. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to happen if we continue down the path we're going.
We could have a lot of coffee over that, but that's a good conversation. But
that's not what she wants me to talk about.
I don't know, but let me.
Here's
just to kind of so I can make sure I hit her bullet points here.
All right. There's a graph that explains it.
I'll send this over to her.
That's from the EIA, but you see this part? The problem is this is coal, nuclear, and all that. And our peak demand load, you see it's getting above this. Well, if it gets above that and it's at nighttime and the wind isn't blowing, then we're having brownouts.
We're having problems.
And we're at 77 in 21. We're probably going to go up another 10% in 22. And as that increases, we're setting ourselves up to have brownouts.
More problems.
But people just don't understand that, or they don't want to. I don't know.
This came from the EIA?
EIA, yeah. That's a guy put it together. The guy's name is Dwayne Stewart. Put that together. He's an engineer in Houston, and he's written a couple articles on this, but it's not getting out there like it needs to.
Interesting. I'll send this over to her.
That's the problem, and that's why Senate Bill 3 isn't going to solve our problem.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Let
me ask you this: what does the term gas supply chain facility scare you a little?
Because I don't know exactly what that means. Right? Is that the gas? I mean, I supply gas through a gathering system to a pipeline. So am I supplying gas, or is the pipeline that picks up all that gas going to the power plant? Is that the supply? So I don't know. That's the scary part about Senate Bill 3. How exactly is that term going to be defined, and how far upstream does that term apply? It all comes
There's no
to
clear definitions.
it comes to how that it is. It says it's going to be if your facility is mapped, right, as one of the critical infrastructure things. And the question is, when they make their map, how far upstream are they going to go? And that you know, if you talk to Christy Craddock right now, she is saying it's not going to get to the wellheads. The Railroad Commission is going to be the one doing this, and they're not going to let it go that far. I don't think it needs to go that far. I don't think that's where the problem is. But if you get somebody in there who thinks it does, then that, if it's just another avenue for them to try to layer some more costs on us, then that will be a problem. But so that's a little scary for me. But
did amending in the bill, particularly the removal of the term gas well, help to keep upstream producers off the bill?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And I don't know if you look at these things, but there was like 80 amendments.
Was it?
So I've trying to follow all this stuff. I'm honestly, our guys in Austin do that for us.
Sure.
We have people who are not volunteers do that.
Exactly. What is the upstream industry's role in producing natural gas? What does an average day look like for you?
What is my role in producing natural gas?
What is the upstream industry's role in producing natural gas?
As far upstream as I am, we're an exploration company. So my job is to try to find new reserves, you know, and to do that, we got to drill new wells. Every day that aren't finding new reserves, we're just depleting our assets. So we try to find new reserves, and then we'll sell it into the market. And where it goes from there, I'm not sure.
What are your thoughts on the cost it's going to take to winterize?
Well, like I said, I talked to our engineers about that, and when you're putting, I think it's methanol injection on wells, and obviously they don't all work. You know, you try to winterize your facilities. I mean, a big thing is if you have electric compression and your electricity gets turned off, you're going to go offline. I mean, so some things you can fix, other things you can't. But you know, he was saying $3,000 to $5,000 per well is what he was thinking, and again, that's a rough number, and that's the best one I have right now, which would be way too much for a stripper well.
Oh, let me ask you.
I mean, a good well, that's not a problem, but a stripper well, I think we have 6,000 or so wells producing over 1 million a day, and those all could obviously 5,000 wouldn't hurt them as much,
right.
but a stripper well, it'll kill them.
Now, when looking at this, where do you think the failure was in this system? Was it? Yeah, I've heard that. I've been in some conversations where a lot of people say even the consumer is to blame because they're demanding cheap energy. You know, a lot of people say it's infrastructure, delivery, you know, with companies like AEP and Encore. Some of these lines have been replaced in 20 years. Is this a problem, or is this more of a Senate Bill 3 doesn't seem like a holistic approach to me to solving this problem?
I agree. I mean, and that's some of the stuff on this other deal that we talked about. I think that we have, you know, you want your electricity grid. Americans want their electricity grid to be there. When you plug something into the wall, they want it to work, and they want it all the time. So to do that, you have to have dispatchable energy. So we have to, if the more we retire that dispatchable energy and rely on other capacity, the more brownouts we're going to have. And there's nothing you can do about it.
As far as the energy, and just this is kind of a note from Monica. Monica, I did get your all your questions answered on here, so just this is kind of secondary. But as far as, you know, because I think there's some more questions that I think need to be addressed with this, and one of them is green energy. With green energy, I mean, the market is required to purchase, right, so much green energy every single day. And, you know, did that contribute at all?
Okay.
The policy, I guess, the energy policy.
When you have your non-dispatchable energy and it puts the way our energy market works, when they don't need
I know
electricity,
that's kind of a tricky question.
it is. When they don't need electricity, basically our windmills will provide energy to the grid at a loss because they're making money with the tax incentives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many games that are being played with our tax dollars. So they can sell, even though we don't need the electricity, they're still going to produce electricity in the grid at a loss to get the tax advantage. And it's like, to me, that's not the right way to do things. But, and also, they don't have to provide backup power. So if every wind facility that came in had to have a dispatchable power generation source to make up the capacity that they say they have, then it's okay. But then, honestly, somehow they'll figure out how that comes out of our tax dollars too.
Right.
So I just don't necessarily think that the solutions we've come up with right now are really feasible if we want a constant energy supply. I mean, it's just, the windmills aren't the answer. I mean, you're gonna have to, I did some math on, we figured out we're gonna need, to get rid of the electricity generation by 2035, we're going to need 470,000 windmills.
Yeah.
So that's going to cover a couple states, and nobody wants them. It's like, and so how is that a good plan?
And it's not saying that anybody is anti-windmill or
Right.
anti-green energy.
Just-
it's just we have to figure out a way to coexist.
there's a reality of this stuff. I mean, that stuff is great if you're living off grid and you're okay with interruptible power. I mean, that is great. But the people in New York City want their power on all the time. The people in Houston wanted power through that storm.
People in Corpus
Wanted power. I mean,
Yeah.
I was lucky. My house here the power
Yeah,
never went off. I mean, it flickered a couple times, and I was really lucky. I guess the key is being on the same grid with a retirement center. It was critical infrastructure, and then your power didn't go off.
I live right there at Kings Crossing, right, and there's not too far from me is a fire station right there, and
That would be critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you're on the same node as them,
exactly.
and they had a real problem. I mean, there weren't rolling blackouts.
No.
There were, I have a place in Canyon Lake, and they turned the power off 4 days.
Yeah.
And I drove up there on Wednesday because I didn't turn the water off, and I'm thinking I'm going to go up to this house and it's going to have water running out the front door, and somehow, for some reason, nothing froze.
Orange
I got
Grove
very
lost power for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. That wasn't, and we can't really. There's a better solution out there. This, I think, Senate Bill 3, the way I read it, and if they do it the way they intend to do it, that'll get us back up to close to covering our peak capacity. But right now, our peak capacity is above our dispatchable energy, so there's going to be a problem.
Be a real problem. Let me go ahead and turn this off. Okay, and this concludes the interview with Brent Hopkins. I'm going to kill it now.